Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video I want to demonstrate how I have built an autonomous block writer with an agent flow, a Copilot agent, SharePoint and Azure in combination. My solution used an agent flow to trigger every day in the morning a Copilot agent. The agent is responsible for doing the following tasks. At first he writes a blog post for me, then he provides keywords about the blog post to categorize the content later. Then the agent searched for an image for the blog post, and after this, when the agent has finished everything, he writes all the information back to a SharePoint list, and when everything is finished, he sent an email to me with a summary about the blog post. The email itself is sent by the agent flow, not by the Copilot agents. And I, as a human in the loop, check then the entry in the SharePoint list, and if everything is fine, I mark the entry in the list as approved. This means that the content, so the new blog post, is not immediately published to a public website until I have not approved the item. This is very important. Maybe the Copilot agent is producing or the content is not well structured, so I have the opportunity to adjust the text and the content, and when everything is fine, I can mark the item as approved. And when the list item is marked as approved, then the item and the content will be published on a website. To display the blog post, I use my new website M365 Insights and read the SharePoint list data via an Azure function. The Azure function itself uses a Grave API and an Entra app registration to read and provide the SharePoint list data. That's all. It's a very easy and straightforward setup. I have here listed the special task. For example, here to read the blog details, I use a custom Azure function as a proxy. And inside this function, I use the MS Graph API and an Entra app registration to access the SharePoint data. And I read only the approved entries from my list called AI blog posts. So let me explain the individual components of the solution. Let's start with the agent flow. And for this, I go to the Copilot Studio, go to Flows and open my blog creator flow. And then we go to the designer. The flow is straightforward. The flow is triggered by a scheduler every day. So we have here a repetition every day at 6 o'clock. Then the flow prepares a call to the blog writer agent, and he calls the agent, and the agent then produces the blog content, and I will show you the details of the agent later. And I send a message to the agent, start blogging, that's all. And then I wait for the agent till the agent is finished, because I respond some data from the agent to the caller, and the response data, I extracted the response data here in these two steps, and I read from the response a JSON, and I received here the list item ID and the title of the created blog post. And with this information, I create an email and sends the email to me every morning. And I have also here a direct link to the list item in SharePoint, so I can click here on the link and the list item with the blog post is open directly. So next, let me explain to you the blog writer agent. Let me open the agent first. So I go to the agent tab or area and I open the blog writer. Let me start with the tools. So I go down to the tools, and the agent needs two tools to write the blog data back to SharePoint. This is a writer tool here. This is a simple SharePoint connector that is connected with the SharePoint list that I use to store the information about the created blog post. And I have also a tool read existing blog entries. The agent needs to read existing entries to prevent duplicates. We will see these details in the agent instructor very soon, because now I go to the important part here. This is the instruction of the agent. So here I describe what the agent should do, and I will not read everything here. Also some important parts. For example, I define the content, the topics that I want to have, so that the agent knows for which topic he should search and for which topics he should provide or create a blog post. And here I have instruction extensive categories to similar topics in this technical area. This means I have here only examples, and he can also extend the categories to find similar or suitable content. And I also instruct him, he should also consider warnings about upcoming retirements, for example, the retirements of alerts. He can also include this information. Then I instruct him to create 2 or 3 keywords like text to identify and categorize the content. And then I instruct him try to find the blog post, for the blog post a suitable image. And here I have an instruction, the blog post should not too technical, so that everyone can understand. And I instruct him also that he should not use my SharePoint tenant as source for a blog article. And then here, very important, prevent similar articles with duplicates content. To prevent this, check the SharePoint list AI blog post with this tool here. So that's very important. So I need this tool so that he can read existing blog entries. With this information, the agent is able to prevent duplicates. So then I define the structure. Consider the following structure of a blog entry. I want the title that has max 200 characters. Then the text should not longer than 10,000 characters. And I want also plain text. Then I provide also an example. That is always good for an agent to provide some test data, some sample data. And the image, suitable image to illustrate the content of the blog post. And then I define also the sources that I want to see the sources. List all external used web knowledge sources for the blog post. So that's all the instruction to create the blog post. And when the blog post is created, I define here how the information should be saved in the SharePoint list. So I have here a little mapping from the title, and I define the column, in which column should the content save in the SharePoint list. And I define here also the tool, use this tool here, write blog post to write all the information back to SharePoint. And then I define here my response. I wanted the agent response with this structure, with the list item, with the property title, and here he should put the blog title inside. So that's all. And as I explained, the blog entry is saved in the SharePoint list. So let me open the list to show you the existing entries. And for this, I go to SharePoint. And this is here, for example, the list, the AI blog post list. And as you can see, the agent has already produced some content. And here you see the title, the body, and as my instruction said, I want to see here HTML text or entities, and also the blog sources. Here I see which sources the agent has used to prepare or to create the blog post. And then I have here my approved column. That's when a new list item is created. The default value of this column is of course no, also false. And you see, you have also a keyword column. The keyword column is in the first row empty for the first item, but then I extended the instruction in the agent, and now you see keyword column is filled with the keywords. So for example, Copilot, Microsoft KI, SharePoint Framework, Microsoft 365, and so on. To publish the blog post, I have implemented an Azure function to provide a REST endpoint for the website. I will show you short the implementation, very short because it's very straightforward. It's an Azure function, and the Azure function uses the Graph API to access the SharePoint content. Here, for example, I have the site ID, list ID, and then, as I said, I use here the Graph client, and I have, of course, also an Entra application registration to authenticate the client here, or the Azure function, so that the Azure function can read the SharePoint data. And then I read the list that I showed you before. And I only read approved items. That's why I have here the filter fields approved equals true. So that's all. And then the endpoint responds with the list item entries. So finally, let me show you to use the website and how the blog looks on the public side. And for this, I go to my new website, and I have here a page called AI blog. And this blog is managed by my Copilot agent, or the Copilot agent is the author of this blog post. And you see this is a result. For example, he produced a blog post about SharePoint framework and he found an image that is suitable for this article. Sometimes the image is suitable, sometimes the image it's a little random, as you can see here, but he tries the best to find the image to the blog article. And as you also can see, I have here the text, the keywords, and here also in the source list, the list of sources that he used to produce the content. For example, here he has used this sources, and sometimes he used multiple sources. For example, for this article about Microsoft 365 Copilot, he used 3 different references. That's all. Very excited. You can check every day my website here, the blog, and then you can see what the Copilot agent has produced.